Well, it's officially the Christmas season, my favorite time of year. And what better way to start off the season of joy and togetherness and holiday spirit than with Netflix and never-ending self-isolation due to a global pandemic? La 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 la. I guess it could be worse. Joking aside, I do have a fondness for Christmas movies, and today we're looking at a sequel to one, The Christmas Chronicles Part 2. The first Christmas Chronicles movie was a nice little surprise 2 years ago. I think most people saw it because of Kurt Russell's Santa Claus, and with good reason. He's the best thing about that movie, and he's the best thing about this one too. He's charming, he's funny, he's got tons of energy, and he plays Santa like he's a cross between Indiana Jones, a semi-retired rock star, and the wacky uncle who's way cooler than your parents. A character like that was gonna draw a lot of attention on the curiosity factor alone. So if you're the studio, you're thinking, well, people loved Santa in the first one, so for the sequel, let's focus a lot more on Santa, spend a crap ton more money on it, and have it be directed and co-written by the guy who brought us Christmas with the Cranks. What could possibly go wrong? They had me up until that last part. They were so close. Alright, maybe that's not being fair. Chris Columbus definitely has his flaws as a writer and a director, but he has made some good movies. And he was a producer on the first Christmas Chronicles, so credit where it's due. No one's ever going to confuse him for a master storyteller, though, and that's where this movie runs into problems. There are some storytelling choices in this movie that are either totally inexplicable, kind of unnecessary, or just plain weird. Also some moments that give you the sense that they got a little too impressed with themselves the first time around and might have tried a little too hard to outdo it. First off, focusing more on Kurt Russell's Santa Claus would presumably be a good thing. That's what it looked like they did in the trailer. And in a way, that's true. You do see more of Santa this time. You see more of his home life. Goldie Hawn as Mrs. Claus is very likable. She is kind of stuck playing the straight man to her husband, but someone has to with a character like this. You see Santa's village? Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Claus's village, because nothing is free of identity politics these days. But the village looks great, there are some fun sight gags in there, and a lot of the movie takes place in and around the village, which is not a bad thing at all. That all being said, you would assume that this movie is about Santa Claus, as he was the breakout character last time, but it's not. It's not even really about Kate and Teddy, the kids from the first movie, though they are still in there. It's about this new character. You know, that weird guy from the trailer who looked bizarrely out of place, like he walked in from a different movie or something? That guy. Belsnickel, a former resident of Santa's village who was disgraced, outcasted, and now wants to take revenge on Santa Claus for reasons that seem pretty flimsy at the best of times, so his entire plot just comes off as really forced. And that's not helped by the fact that it's not clear what he hopes to gain from all this either. Like, he wants to steal the Christmas star and cause a revolt among the elves and invent way cooler toys than Santa so he can make people forget about Santa out of spite because he has major daddy issues, and frankly, this character felt really unnecessary to me. Now, I see what they were going for. It's about father figures, and the whole movie has this theme of dads and surrogate parents running through it, but I feel like they already kinda did that with the first Christmas Chronicles. So much so that Kate just ends up basically repeating her brother's story arc from that movie, albeit in a different way. Honestly, because this Belsnickel character drives so much of the plot, it feels like they're retreading a lot of familiar ground that they already covered just because they thought their Christmas movie needed a villain, which, unless we're talking about the Grinch or the abominable snow monster from Rudolph, might need a little more thought put into it than humans suck, elves rule. And yes, that is an actual line from the movie. Also, the biggest holes in the story come from this character too. Like, he builds his own flying sleigh, even though he has a gizmo that can teleport him anywhere he wants to go, rendering the flying sleigh kind of pointless. So why does he even have it? So they can have an aerial fight scene between him and Santa, of course. Doesn't really make sense, but it looks cool. and that's all Columbus cared about. And there's also this really weird side plot involving time travel of all things, because Belsnickel has a time travel device which he uses to get Santa out of the way by sending him and Kate to some other location in the past, which kinda sounds like it should have been a movie all on its own, instead of some temporary distraction from the A-plot in this one. And if you think about it for 5 seconds, it makes no sense at all, because if he had just sent Santa and Kate to the exact same location in the present, it would have had the exact same effect, so the time traveling was utterly pointless. The only reason they did it really was to set up this meeting between Kate and this other character, so there was a purpose behind it, but they never justified introducing time travel into the story in the first place. It was completely tacked on, so the whole sequence feels super transparent. And that's not even counting that the kids' entire storyline over these 2 movies has been about missing their dad who passed away. But now they've got a time machine, and not one of these characters thinks, hey, we could go back in time and stop Dad from dying. I mean, if there's some kind of legitimate reason why they can't do this, that's one thing. But that could have been the whole movie right there, and no one even brings it up as a possibility. And I don't know why. It's bizarre. Also bizarre is that Belsnickel never once considers that he could just use this time machine to go back in time and prevent the very thing he's been trying to undo the entire movie from ever happening in the first place. Why doesn't he just do that? Never even addressed. Look, the writers of Avengers Endgame had to bend over backwards to explain away all the plot holes they created by making time travel a thing in the MCU, and even then they still couldn't account for them all. If you want to give your characters a freaking time machine, you damn well better be ready to explain why they can't instantly solve all their problems with this thing. And if you're not prepared to do that, then maybe you shouldn't have introduced it in the first place. Frankly, the whole time travel sequence not only comes out of nowhere and disappears just as quickly, but it creates more problems than it solves. It doesn't fit in the larger context of the movie, it's not organic at all, though it does set the stage for the big musical number, which they clearly only wrote in because they wanted to top the musical number from the first movie. And this one is bigger, I'll give them that. They tried. And we get to see Santa Claus dance, which is fun, but it needed to be wackier. It's nowhere near as batshit insane as the last one, and without the jail cell setting and the hookers singing backup vocals, this number just doesn't have the same charm to it. Bigger isn't necessarily better, and that applies to a lot of things about this movie. But that's not to say the movie's terrible. Everything involving Kurt Russell's Santa Claus is great, the child actors are serviceable, though the new kid Jack doesn't get the most interesting stuff to do, and overall the movie is still enjoyable and fun. But most of the story is built around Belsnickel, and he's easily the weakest part of this. Even a lot of the world building is about Belsnickel. At one point, Santa and Kate go on a mission to find a replacement for the Christmas star, and why that plot wasn't a whole movie on its own too, I couldn't tell you. But it's reduced to this 10-minute easily resolved side story because they just want to keep cutting back to the Belsnickel plot. I don't know why they thought this character was so fascinating, I really don't. Hey look, it's the kid from Deadpool 2 playing the villain! Yay? Look, don't get the wrong idea. Christmas Chronicles Part 2 is not bad. If you liked Kurt Russell's Santa Claus in the first movie, you'll like him in this one. He's still a lot of fun. Him alone would make this thing worth watching. I did really enjoy how they brought Santa's village to life. It looked great, and most of the stuff that doesn't involve Belsnickel tends to work pretty well. I just don't see why they thought they needed that character in the first place. While the first Christmas Chronicles movie is better in my opinion, I think you can still have fun with Part 2. It would have benefited from a rewrite though. This feels like the filmmakers used most of their best ideas in the first movie, and in the interest of cranking out a sequel, they started grasping at a few too many straws for new ideas, and got a little too fancy with it for their own good. Let me know what you thought of the Christmas Chronicles Part 2 down below. Ding that bell icon and follow me on social media to always be notified when new videos get uploaded. The link is down there. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed, because the real villain trying to ruin Christmas for everybody is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now, but there's a lot more to come. I'll be back with new stuff very soon, so do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time.